Welcome to the CJ Murray Podcast, an exploration of music and growth on a technical, philosophical, and emotional basis. Today's conversation is with Malachi Rafael, a friend who has always thought deeply and asked difficult questions. We will discuss vulnerability in songwriting and identity. Today was an excellent reminder to be courageous, think service-minded, and ultimately find contentment in God. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Thank you. Malachi, I'm really thankful to have you on this.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me.
You've been a good friend. I don't think we've cried together. I was going to say I think we've cried together, but I don't think we have.
Maybe once.
We've
We've definitely had a moment.
Waffle House.
Yes, Waffle House.
I'm sure it's happening. I know it's happening at Waffle House. This is a quick plug just to describe Malachi and I's friendship. We've had this running thing for years where we would randomly go to Waffle House at like 2 a.m.,
11 o'clock,
midnight. Yeah, and just vent and rant and go over, honestly, mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
totally.
for me, a lot of it would have to do with music too. And I think that's a good run into our questions. So, Malachi, who is a music artist you highly respect and why?
It's a very difficult question. I have a very broad range of musical artists that I look up to or I like. But I would say my favorite musical artist I respect overall is probably NF, Nathan Feuerstein. I love his music because it's very authentic. He talks about himself a lot in a very vulnerable way. And he tries to be very honest with his audience. And he's also a family person. And you can kind of see that in the way he conducts his shows where he like interacts with the audience. But as soon as he's done with the show, he's like, okay, I'm back to my family, back to my wife, back to my kids.
He keeps a good separation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still very vulnerable in connecting with his audience. And I like to actually see people go from, he had a lot of mental health struggles. And he went from all those struggles to being a healthy person and taking people on the journey with him in his healing process. And in a way, I guess because I've healed with him, I respect him because we kind of, I guess, gone to Waffle House together, kind of like we did.
And you know what I love about that idea of healing with somebody, where when you were honest about your testimony about things going on in your life and someone else connects with that, then when you get a victory, it's almost like you share that victory with somebody.
Yeah.
And on a relational basis, you guys grow together in a way you wouldn't have before.
Yeah.
You know? So, but it's unique though, when you have a really popular artist or someone like him, how he can connect with people in that way. So off of that, what element of music, even if it's his music, resonates with you the most? I know you talked about vulnerability. Is that part of it?
I would say vulnerability. And then another thing I enjoy in music is synchronicity of the musical artist's music. So
what's that mean?
Synchronicity, just if everything flows together, has an overlapping story. Like different musical artists, like if you listen to an album, in total they'll have like an entire story that just kind of flows together. And that to me is really nice because you can kind of travel with them in their mind and see what they're wanting to say or tell you. NF does that very well.
So like continuity.
Yeah, continuity. Another thing, another artist is I think I've showed him to you, Ryan Caraveo. Most of his albums all have like a similar theme. And one album in particular called Butterfly Boy, it goes through his entire struggle with his own, I would say BPD, borderline personality disorder, and how he relates that to his relationship with the highs and lows. And it's a very interesting album to listen to once you get that perspective. Because it shows how he like thinks the relationship is perfect. He goes through splitting, and then he dives into other elements of, I forget the term for when you're splitting the other way, where instead of seeing someone as being perfect, you actually see them as like a horrible person. And it's just very interesting to listen to the album, knowing that and following his whole mind from the beginning of the relationship to the ending.
So I think I picked up on it, but I just kind of want to dive into it more. What does it mean to be vulnerable in your mind?
Ooh, that's a hard question to ask on a podcast. uh,
All right, like let's go back to NF's music.
mm-hmm,
So when he's vulnerable, and I can even think of some songs, or how about I give my thought to that first, and I'll let you comment. To be vulnerable, when I think of him, it's being transparent about where you're at
mm-hmm,
emotionally, even physically, spiritually, especially.
mm-hmm,
People have a spectrum of how open they are spiritually. You can have someone really godly,
mm-hmm.
but they're maybe not as vocal about it as other people. And part of that, I think, is a perspective difference of it's just so personal.
Yeah.
You know, it's really the deepest part of who you are, like the soul, the spirit, that eternal element. And so when someone is talking about that and says, I'm not doing well, and
Mm-hmm.
here's 10 reasons why. And by the way, here's a prayer, not just detailing how I'm not doing well, but conveying a sense of desperateness,
Mm.
even sometimes not having a grip on the solution yet. I think that's something that makes someone especially vulnerable, is a lot of times we like to come out about a topic, an issue, a problem after we found the solution.
Yeah.
Because then at that point, sorry, that's falling down. There you go. Yeah, we like to come out after we found a solution. But if you do it before you found it, it really is more just saying, this is who I am, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And yeah, what's your thoughts on all that?
I think I agree with what you said.
Yeah.
That like vulnerability is about being honest about where you're at, and then not just telling people, hey, this is what I've been through, because a testimony is great. I love testimonies where people come back and say, hey, this is my story, my autobiography, this is where I've came from. But it's a lot more interesting to have a Waffle House conversation.
Mm,
It's more healing, I think, for you to
mm,
actually bring people into your life as you're changing, because it how do I say this? It's easy to go to the doctor after you've been healed from an injury. But when you run into the ER, you have to sit there, you have to explain how you cut yourself in some embarrassing
mm,
manner way, how you put your finger into like a pencil grinder, like a pencil sharpener. It's something stupid. I mean, it sounds dumb to say it like that, but in our life we make these dumb blunders. And then to bring someone into our lives who can actually help us heal through that and talk about, hey, I did this. I stayed up late last night. I watched this. I went to this party. I had this edible. To tell someone that and to say, hey, like I came from this and I need help. Can you help me get to the next step? That's painful
mm,
because it's just telling someone how bad of a person you are,
mm,
and you're gonna have the inner voice telling you you're a horrible person. Then someone
mm,
else has to tell you, hey, you're doing bad. But you also have this chance to feel love. And that's something very important in healing, is that if you don't ever feel loved when you're a bad person, you think that love is conditional.
mm.
And wow, that actually almost got me. Almost got me.
Oh my word.
Um
Yeah.
it's just something I've struggled with, is like whenever I'm going through something, I typically don't talk about it till I've maybe made the first step, because a part of me still feels like love is slightly conditional. And it's taken a lot of work in my own life to actually stop and say, hey, like, I need to talk. And I think you've seen me do that several times. I'm like, hey, like, I've been going through something. Can we just go to Waffle House? And I don't know if you ever noticed this, but I literally get scared, like, trying to have that conversation, because I'm like, I don't want to have this talk.
Like
Um,
there's moments where you just have to take a break for 20 seconds and just, take a breath and just before you
yeah,
can keep on going. Yeah.
yeah. But it's very healing to do that, and that helps you grow together. And the thing is, I've heard this analogy where you can grow faster by yourself, but you always go farther with someone else. And even if
I
you
love that
trip and
quote. Yeah.
fall, like they're there to pick you up.
Yeah.
So that's just something that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um I'd heard that quote before by, believe it or not, Robert Downey Jr. And
Mm,
the way he worded it from an actor director standpoint was, you can do your own thing. You go faster by yourself, you go further together.
Yeah.
And I think that applies in large part just to relationships in general. I think when you're not in a relationship, you can go faster. You have more
Yeah.
time, you have more focus, you have more, maybe even resources
Yeah.
personally, financially, etc. But in a relationship, yeah, you sacrifice time, you sacrifice money, you sacrifice thought, emotion, etc. You don't go as fast, but on your down day to have that person say,
Mm.
"I'm with you to the end.
Yeah.
I believe in you." And I've had conversations with Megan where I just say, "I don't think I can.
Mm.
I'm down. I'm not this, or just vent regrets." And just to have a person like in full sincerity
Mm.
say, "No, I believe in you."
Mm.
And in fact, just a story, as a quick plug, just in terms of being vulnerable. I was writing a song a few months ago,
Mm.
and I know my heart set on doing my own vocals. And
Yeah.
then I had a friend come over. We were going to write another song just for fun.
Yeah.
But I had my song pulled up and I said, "Hey man, why don't you just give the vocals a shot, right? I'm just curious
Yeah.
to see what you can do." And like first take, he killed it. It was awesome. I mean,
Wow.
I loved it. And to be honest with you, I fell in love with his take on the song.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing vocalist. And after he left, I was so torn. I was like, "Man, I I think he should sing it."
Mm.
It's my song, but just the way he did it, the quality, etc. And Megan was definitely an advocate for, but it's your song. And I think that
Mm.
it's wise to still try it for yourself.
That's powerful.
Yeah, but what happened is it was a day or two later. It was just late at night, and and she looked at me and she said, "Man, I can't get your song out of my head. It's so good." And it's like, "Oh, thank you." But, I asked her, "Was it his voice or was it my voice?"
Mm.
Yeah, and she said, "No, it was your voice.
Mm.
It's your song. It's your heart. And I think that you embody it in a way that no one else will, because
Wow.
it's your message."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even to trying vocals, that vulnerability of it may not be perfect, it may not be what I think it should be,
Yeah.
even quality wise, but there's something to art and music where you have to get it out there,
Yeah.
and the value of being vulnerable, I think, if you can get past that threshold, Waffle House conversation, if you can get past the threshold of "I'm scared," there is a real sense of victory and satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you did it.
Yeah.
And just to take it a completely different direction spiritually, confessing sin.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh
We want to
man.
talk about being vulnerable, right? And
Oh no. Yeah.
in fact, I'm just going to run with some dots here. Um, it's a real act of God to get to the place where you can go to somebody and say, "Hey, I sinned against you.
Yeah.
I did this. I was in the wrong." And to
Mm.
the point that you brought up earlier, that there's a healing element, I think, for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
You heal, and because they watch you heal, they kind of heal just a little bit with you,
Yeah.
and you're a little bit closer for it. And that being said, not that I've written that much music yet, but writing really vulnerable music, even going back to NF, can be an act of God,
Mm.
where God might not even give you the solution yet.
Yeah.
And before you have the solution, God just lays on your heart, "Hey, you should talk to people about this." "Yeah, but I haven't figured it out yet." "Yeah, but you don't have to.
Mm.
You just need to create."
Mm.
And yeah.
I like that. I like
Oh,
that. You just need to create something where you're at.
yeah.
Wow.
What is an observation about how artists' mental health influences their music?
That's a good one. I think that how they view mental health, I think really frames how they talk about relationships and how they discuss all of just like their relationships, their responses to problems, and even their viewpoint of control in life.
Mm.
If someone feels out of control, they don't really discuss how they can fix things. They don't have an optimistic viewpoint. It's just this, oh no, this happened. How do I move forward? I don't know. Everything's out of control. But if you feel an element of control in your life, then what you do is you like talk about this is bad, but there's something better. And maybe it's not the same song, but it's probably in the album of some form of direction of moving forward, even if you don't know where to
That
move.
continuity.
Yeah, the continuity of I can move forward with something. And that's really powerful. That's something that not all musical artists do. Some of them
Mm.
just make a depressing song about a breakup,
Yeah.
or they talk about like, oh, life is horrible or life is too good, but they don't have that full range of the good and bad and how to move forward through it.
Mm. You know, there's a song that I haven't listened to in a little while, but it's called Something True by
Hmm.
Juniper Vale featuring Vian Isaac. I love them as artists.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the song is basically two broken people
Mm,
that are in a bad place. And the song's a beautiful song, but they're in a bad place. But the whole point is, but we're onto something true.
mm,
Where when you open up to each other, when you express that vulnerability, you find a beauty in what you collectively come to.
mm.
Yeah.
That's true.
And what you said before, as far as that growth, it goes back to the synchronicity that you mentioned, where um it's meaningful to express problems in one album, maybe
Hmm.
without solutions. But, if a listener follows you through that, two albums later,
Yeah.
and then you come back and you say, hey, here's an amazing thing that I found. It's a testament to integrity that you were honest the whole time,
Yeah.
to perseverance too, I would say, that you would carry on that train of thought through such an extended amount of work, because
Hmm.
music takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into, with any craft, really, there's a lot that goes into any craft that the general public doesn't know. But one difficulty, even in terms of vulnerability and mental health, it can be extremely challenging to be writing a song that has an emotional message to it,
Mm.
and it take you months to do,
Oof.
because it means that you have to
Keep that emotion.
keep that emotion, and
Yeah.
you have to keep the emotion, you have to keep the, oh my word, I don't even know. And I've run into that problem with a song that's like 70% finished. Is just, I had a great message that was especially true at the time, and then 2 months after I've started it,
Hmm.
I'm looking at the lyrics completely differently, because I'm asking myself, do I still mean it? I don't feel that problem the way I
Right.
feel it then. You know,
Mm.
I like, I felt this emotion. Now I don't feel it as strongly. And so
Yeah.
then it's a question of, what's the value of finishing a song if I don't feel it like I used to?
Yeah.
And I think that what I'm still wrestling with, very imperfectly. But I think at that point, the song becomes less about you and more about your listener.
Yeah.
Because if I felt an emotion at a specific time, I'm going to write a song about it. I'm going to
Right.
spend months on it. 3 months later, okay, I don't feel the way I used to about it. It's taking the focus back to, but someone else still does.
Yeah.
Someone else is still going to resonate with that. And this is hitting me because I actually rewrote most of the lyrics, because I'm like, no. And now I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should go back. Kind of
Refresh it.
talking against myself just a little bit here. Um, Man, how does we've covered a lot of this, but I'm just gonna revisit the question because it's here. An artist's mental health. Walk me through how it affects you. Like, take a
Mm.
song that just hit you, and like, what's the? I know you talked about healing with a
Hmm.
song. You kind of feel the emotion of it. What's that experience like for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I thought of several different songs that I could talk about. I guess I have to go with NF song Happy because it's a very straightforward song that just you can listen to and it makes sense.
I had a couple days where you had told me that song, and it wasn't right after you told me about it, but there was a 2 to 3 day stretch
You just
where
listen to it.
it was just a dark 2 to 3 days, right?
It's
And
hard 2 to 3 days.
okay, this is me being open and honest on the podcast,
Oh
right? But
no.
no, seriously, there was 2 or 3 days.
It's called Happy, man.
Yeah, but you listen to it and you just cry.
Yeah.
No, there was 2 or 3 days where I was in the car listening to it, driving away from places, and I would just bawl because it's
Yeah.
so. It's just. I mean, I don't know. We should probably talk about the
Yeah,
song
talk about this
so
song.
people
Yeah.
know. And it's been a while since I've listened to it, but it's basically I've gotten so used to not being happy
Yeah.
that I don't know what it feels like. And no matter what I do, am I really going to know what it actually means to be happy?
Yeah.
And half the song is really a prayer to God of, hey, it's been a while.
Yeah.
We haven't talked in a hot minute.
Yep.
I don't know what to do. Is there a way? Now, some of his music, from a theological standpoint,
Yeah.
part of me is like, okay, man, the solution's closer than you think.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, how often are we in that dark place and the solution's closer than we think, and we're still not there?
Yeah.
And that's really where it heads. What are your thoughts on all that?
No, I agree with that. That's part of why I love the song is because it is a bit of theology. It hits every portion of my life, my spirituality, my emotions, everything all in one is just combined into one song, and it's just funny. Like I love how he starts the song going off with like, "Dear God, I know it's been a while," and he just starts praying about like, "Hey, I know you created me to be happy." And you created like this amazing world, but I'm just stuck in all these things going on. And for me, like just listening to that, sometimes, I kind of get stuck thinking about how negative life is. And then I'll forget about God because I'll get busy and I won't have quiet time with him.
Mm,
And then that song for me, it just reminds me of like, hey, life is, you don't have all the answers. You don't know everything,
mm,
but God's still there and he actually does want the best for you.
mm.
All you have to do is just kind of stop, talk to him about your day, and move forward. Like you don't know what's next, but God actually wants something for you, and you don't have to be unhappy in whatever's happening. Um,
Mm.
there was this I was listening to Andrew Huberman, and he mentioned a podcast on meditation. He mentioned that the number one, like the key thing for being happy is if you're focused on whatever you're going through. And it could be something miserable or something really happy. But if you're focused on that moment, you feel happier than if you're thinking about everything else. And a big part of life, a big thing that we do in life is we avoid what we're feeling and we try to talk about everything else. We don't pray about what we're actually experiencing. We just watch TV, we eat junk food, we go hang out with friends, and we run from the actual discomfort in life. So we can't be happy because we're trying to create happiness. When happiness isn't created, it's experienced by enjoying or feeling the moment. And when you try to create artificial happiness, you really just push it farther and farther away. Just like fake sugar, like high fructose corn syrup versus like natural sugar. You can't enjoy strawberries if you're eating strawberry Pop Tarts. Like it's the same flavor, but it's not the same. And that's why I love that song so much.
You know what I love about the point that you just made is I think that's what makes vulnerable music satisfying to create,
Mm,
because it allows the creator and the listener to focus on the problem.
yep.
It zones out everything else and says, "This is where I'm at. Let's talk about it."
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, because a lot of times, a lot of music is just fluff. You hear people talk about like the mumble rappers or just the casual pop singers who just say whatever just to get people to, bounce around, have fun. And there's a place for that. Like, the like Proverbs talks about like, time for dancing and time for crying,
Mm.
mourning. You need every element of that. But sometimes you just need a song that says, "Hey, this is life. It's not amazing. I mean, it's good though, and I'm content with where it's at.
Mm.
And no matter how bad it is, I'm just gonna move forward with where I'm at, and God's gonna point me in the right direction." And that, to me, is a vulnerable song
Mm.
when it talks about when it just talks about not knowing,
Mm.
because that is most of life is unknown in a way.
You had mentioned, modern pop songs that have a lot of fluff. I think it's the artist can be vulnerable about bad things that
Mm.
prove to me that the happy songs, they mean it.
Mm.
Like it's
Yeah.
yeah, like the songs that are nothing but just a good bop and that's all, and that's most of their music. It's harder to tell. I mean, a lot of those songs may be genuine,
Yeah.
but when you take someone that has been clear about their lows, when I hear a song that's going through the highs,
Mm-hmm.
it resonates more
Yeah.
because as a listener, I'm convinced about the synchronicity, that
Mm-hmm.
continuity. It's saying, okay, so here's a whole bunch of lows, but this high tastes good,
Yeah.
you know? Um, yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, this is coming to my mind kind of as I talk about it and think about it, but songwriting through the context of Psalms,
Mm.
right? Half to most of the Psalms, they're not happy.
Yeah.
But they're honest. They're vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I think, we're using the word happy a lot, but even just joy. I think when you spend time in the lows and you're honest with God about it, when you handle the lows right,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't always translate to happiness, but it can translate to worship.
Yeah.
And I think that really caters to just all around contentment and satisfaction.
Mm.
I mean, you go to Ecclesiastes and the book hits.
Dark book.
Because the whole book is like, well, what's the point of all this? And it's coming
Favorite
from
book
a
of the
guy
Bible.
that owned most of the world. And there was a time where I just was especially just depressed about music,
Mm-hmm.
specifically. And I prayed. I said, hey, God, I just need some encouragement. That's all I need. Just a really simple prayer. And I went to Ecclesiastes.
You emo kid.
I need some encouragement. Ecclesiastes.
Life is pointless.
Life. Oh my word. But something that hit me though was, and just to kind of detail it, I was depressed of like, man, I could be better at music, but I'm not,
Mm.
and I'm surrounded by people that are just amazing, and I don't give myself enough credit for what I can do. But I went to Ecclesiastes, and when Solomon is saying, I had this, I had this, I had this, I had
Mm.
this, and I had the best musicians in the world at my feet. I had the best
Mm.
artist in my presence, and I had no satisfaction.
Mm.
And it hit me because we place a certain weight on how our art is interpreted by other people, even in terms of its quality.
Yeah.
And we think satisfaction will come from that if it's good enough.
Mm.
If it's good enough, then I'll be satisfied. I mean, Solomon had the best and he wasn't satisfied,
Yeah.
And then you go to the end. And then there's, I think, 2 points in the book where Solomon says, and then I found that there is nothing better for a man than to enjoy his food and drink and love the work that he does.
Mm. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when a person loves that, it kind of simplifies life because it means that you don't mind what you're doing to provide for your family,
Yeah.
and you have a good dinner table to sit down at. Like at the end of the day, the best thing that God can provide for us is a job that we can show up to with a smile
Yeah.
and a good family to sit down with. Like that is most of life right there.
Yeah.
Regardless of social media, career skills, anything. If you have that, you have most in what the world has, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something to really appreciate.
Mm. To add to that, there was a reel I saw where this guy was like, you don't need like a magical job. You just need to enjoy your 9 to 5. And it was just a short reel of this guy like going to work, like wake up in the morning, making his breakfast, taking his coffee to work, sitting on his desk. And I mean, he didn't just sit at his desk, he kind of like cleaned it up, made it look
Yeah,
nice,
he owned it.
but he made the most of it.
Yeah,
And that's something that like in Ecclesiastes, it just talks about enjoying that. Kind of
yeah,
to touch on what you said. Like there's something really good about just enjoying where you're at that actually makes it more fulfilling.
yeah. I really want to park on this. I follow a ton of Instagram, YouTube pages that really glorify the entrepreneur mindset
Mm,
of, break your boundaries, go out, achieve your dreams. And honestly, I follow those pages for a reason. Because there's people that are involved in that circle, that mindset that just work really hard.
yeah.
They're very disciplined and they really know what they want and they go for it. I look at that and I say, man, that's the people I need to surround myself with, is the people that are focused, they're disciplined, they know what they want, and they do it.
Yeah.
But I think the healthy mindset that been combining with it over time, going to what we were just saying, is okay, but at what point do you slow down?
Mm,
At what point? I mean,
yeah.
I had lunch with a really good friend the other day. Used to be one of my teachers actually, and he was talking to me about number one, it's okay to wait to have kids. They got married, they waited 9 years to have kids.
Wow.
Now, in that 9 years, his wife got her master's and her doctorate, and he was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the top four auditing firms in the world,
Wow.
and he was working like 90 hours a week. I mean, yeah.
You can have kids with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't have kids with that.
Yeah.
And then he came to teach, and then that kind of slowed down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to another job downtown, and that's kind of how I had lunch with him. I drove downtown, met up with him. He's in
Mm.
a he's in a job transition right now to another job,
Wow.
and he was saying, yeah, yeah, man, it's about the same pay, but I don't travel, I don't work the weekends. It's just the 9 to 5.
Mm.
I have 2 kids now, and I love this.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about the joys of being a father and just being able to talk with his wife.
Mm.
And I found that the unique perspective
Mm.
of going from one thing to the other. Now, one thing he did say, and this is what he recommended to me, is he said, I've never regretted a single penny I've ever spent on traveling
Yeah.
because those experiences, those memories, and part of why you may not want to have kids right away is because when you have kids, it's a completely new element
Oh
traveling.
yeah.
He's like, before we used to find the cheapest plane tickets. We could drive 8 hours to an airport because it was just the better way to go.
Yeah.
But when you have kids, it's like, oh, when are we going to put them to sleep? When are we going to feed them? When are we going to
Yeah.
do all these things? And he said, like, I would recommend do travel more and do it before you have kids.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, just the satisfaction and contentment. And it was interesting coming from him because he is an amazing violinist. And he used to practice like some hours every day, even as a married guy.
Wow.
Yeah, he was committed. And right now he still does weekend gigs,
Mm.
but from talking with him, it seems like it's slowed down a bit where, he has a good job.
Yeah.
He enjoys time with his family,
Mm.
and he's still able to do a gig every now and then on the weekends playing violin for weddings. And he was content. He was
Mm.
satisfied. And at the same time, he was talking about his church and he's saying, man, like, this church I go to, the pastor studies a lot. I've learned more about the Bible at my church than I ever have at any other church in my life.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's that element where he's content. You can tell he's satisfied, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, he's still growing,
Yeah.
and I think that's a bottom line as far as the ideal of life is understanding how to be content,
Mm-hmm.
but being the type of person that is just not going to stop growing.
Yeah.
You're just not going to give up.
I kind of want to interrupt you there because I love what you said about being content but still moving forward. And um I know we've been talking about mental health a lot, and not to backtrack to that, but I almost want to redefine mental health from my perspective,
Mm.
because I see mental health as the ability to self-regulate yourself while I know I just said that in a convoluted way. The
Self-regulate. Yeah,
ability to
yeah.
self-regulate.
Like go
Yeah.
on autopilot.
Yeah. Like to regulate your own emotions and experiences, not to get overwhelmed by something.
Mm.
But coupling that with the ability to still chase your goals and interests and maintain your relationships
Mm.
and be happy. And if you can do all of that, that's true mental health. Like a lot of what you see on the internet is just like, oh, take time, like, stop, like, go outside, relax. Like that's good. That's important. It's an element of it. But the whole picture is just being a happy, healthy person who enjoys all his activities while still growing. We were able to shift your priorities from one thing to the next as life changes without um, feeling like you lost yourself,
Mm.
because your identity is ever shifting. I mean, and that's something that a lot of people can't really understand, is that you change as you move forward in life, and the ability to handle that with grace to yourself and others, and to not grow so attached to something, to an identity, is also an element of your health, where you just have to understand, like, I'm going to be different. My spouse is going to be different. My friends are going to be different as we move forward. And you have to accept that, but also be content in it.
Mm.
That way you can just move forward and enjoy the unknowns, the knowns, cry a little bit, be
Yeah.
happy, look back on the past. And
Mm.
I love your friend, how he said how he just moved from being like, 90 hours a week to, I'm gonna just be like a dad. Like that shows this
Yeah.
huge range of, this is important now. Like money's important in your 20s. Like go out, go make money in your 20s, guys. It's good for you. And then transition to being a family man. Like that's the point of life, because you can't be something forever. You can't.
Mm.
NF says his line where he says, "I like to rap, but I can't do it forever."
Mm.
And I don't know why. Like it just hit me because he beat in 2020, I think he beat, or 2019, he beat, I think, Chance the Rapper for like top rap album.
Hmm.
And everyone was so mad at him, like, oh, who's this guy? Blah, blah, blah. Like he was like number one on YouTube, Spotify for like a week, because people were just listening to his music nonstop. And he caught a lot of like flack from it. But he even said, I can't be a rapper forever.
You can't be at the top of the charts forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to move forward and be okay with that, and still not lose your sense of self, and just be happy.
Mm.
And that's the essence of Ecclesiastes and mental health.
There's a bottom line I think that I want to use to really wrap up this whole episode, that capstones, I think, everything that you said. And I think that ultimately is understanding your identity in Christ.
Yeah.
Because if your identity is in Christ, that self-identity that we feel, we're okay to change.
Yeah.
In fact, when we understand our identity is in Christ, our identity will always be changing. The idea is just that, oh man, this gets really tricky. I don't think it's that our identity becomes more like Christ. I think it's more along the lines of, the more we become like Christ, the more we realized our identity was worth being on the cross. That that our identity was meant to die the whole time.
Huh.
There was never a point in your life where Malachi was meant to be your identity. And I think this is where things get really interesting. I'm winging this as I go.
I mean, you're flying above, bro.
But art and music, I feel like when we doubt, when we're vulnerable, when we're expressive about where we're at and portraying that, creating in that, I think that it's relatable to what everyone feels. But I think the solution you want to present in your art at the end of the day can't be you. I think in pop culture, that happiness, the end solution for happiness that the world will put forward is still you.
Yep.
It's your friends. It's the good time. It's the experiences. It's all these really otherwise good things in life. But that's not contentment.
Yeah.
Contentment is knowing there is nothing more you have to do to achieve an identity that's worth something. Christ's identity he offers to us on a regular basis. And um I just there's a question I wanted to get to that you had for me, because
Mm.
I'd asked you to bring three questions, and the one was um what discipline would you want to achieve, or that
Mm.
you've been waiting on?
Yeah. Oh, I think it was
And
a challenge we've been waiting on. Yeah.
yeah, and the one that came to my mind, ironically enough, was time in prayer.
Mm.
That's not been my lifestyle, I think, for a good while.
Mm.
I can honestly say that. But there was a time in my life where that was my lifestyle.
Mm.
When
Like
I
your
was in,
intercessor,
yeah.
like the message on Wednesday.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. I have to comment on the message on Wednesday for
Mm.
people's context. And I think this is a really good thing to talk about. I think we're going over time, but this is worth it. There is a Wednesday night sermon about being an intercessor.
Mm.
And his point was there's people who play basketball, and then there's basketball players.
Yep.
The basketball players, they live it, they breathe it year round. They work night and day for that.
Yep.
People who play basketball, they go after work, they play with
Mhm.
friends on the weekend, whatever.
They got Walmart shoes on.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the difference between a person who prays and an intercessor. A person who prays is the person who wakes up, say a couple prayers, pray before you eat, even pray for people now and again.
Yeah.
But an intercessor is a committed person that says, this is my lifestyle.
Yep.
Now, he gave an altar call, and there were a ton of people that went forward.
Mm.
And honestly, I'm going to say this publicly, I didn't go forward. And well, here's why. The people that went forward, I thought to myself, these people don't know what they're signing up for. No,
Yeah.
no, like they really don't. Like, do you really have a vision of what it looks like to sacrifice time with your friends to be alone for an hour
Or 20 minutes every
or
day.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is a commitment. And the times in my life where I did make that commitment, where I said, you
Mm.
know what, I'm gonna get home from school and I'm gonna give an hour, whether I feel like it or not. And to be honest with you, for some weeks in there, I was bored.
Just praying for an hour.
No, I was bored because your mind isn't wired that way.
Yeah.
Our social media minds are not wired to pause and actually think and meditate on a singular thing for that long. You're not. And so your mind's all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think God doesn't blame a person for that happening either. I think God understands the psychology better than we do.
Yeah.
But if you're committed long enough, your mind does adjust.
Yeah.
And suddenly you go into the prayer closet and you don't come out you.
Mm.
You really come out with a different sense of identity, of like, man, whatever I was worrying about, whatever I was
Mhm.
stressing about,
It's gone.
it's God. And it's you realize you go into the prayer closet with problems
Mm.
and you come out realizing they don't have to be solved. You just need to be with God.
Mm.
And it's the presence and
Yeah.
something too. Now I'm just ranting, but the people who spend
good.
time in the Word, this is good for me too, because I need this right now, especially. The people that spend time in God's Word and they're like, oh yeah, I just don't get a lot out of it. I mean, okay, one, you probably should, or you should want to,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's not about even getting anything out of the Word. It's just being there.
Yep.
It's just reading and knowing, wow, I'm with God,
Yeah.
and being good with that. And a big reason why I've loved this conversation is because I think it's helped me recalibrate about creating just in general.
Mhm.
And I don't know, just like a verbal reminder, I think, for both of us of spending time with God
Yeah.
is like the main thing. Like
It
if
makes
you,
you happy.
yeah, if you spend time with God, it,
Mm.
I don't know, like contentment.
Yeah. I'll end on this part. There's this
Yep.
book I'm reading called Resisting Happiness. It's written by this Catholic guy, and his whole premise of the book is that we're constantly pushing happiness away from us with our actions every day. And I was reading the first couple chapters, it was like a very basic self-help book.
Yeah.
And then like I was reading the fifth chapter, and he just literally says, hey, like, you're not happy because you're not spending time with God. and you need to want him more than anything else. And he was like, hey, there's still the rest of the book left, but it's not going to matter until you get this one thing right. So I love what you said about like you need to spend time with God, because, you know, mental health is great. But if you do everything without God, it's just you. And you change, you shift, your life changes, your family changes, your circumstances change, your job changes, the economy changes, everything in the world changes. Like, I mean, Pangea to what we have now. Florida could be gone in a while. I mean, just think of all these things have changed on the planet. Stars have gone out, but God doesn't change. And if you focus on him, you spend your time with him every day, just 5 minutes, you know, wake up and pray for a little bit on your way to work, just something simple that's consistent, you'll have something that doesn't change in your life. And that's more powerful and better for you than any workouts, any disciplines, any sleep schedules. Just that time with God is more important than anything else.
Man, I needed that.
Me too.
Man. Malachi, thank you for being on this podcast.
Yeah.
This has been a fantastic episode. And we should have this again.
Yeah.
I think it'd benefit the both of us and anyone else that listens. It's been awesome.
Dude, thank you for having me. This was amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like we should get a waffle now and we should have waffles here, you know, just some other time just to eat them.
That would be hilarious. Oh my word.
Oh man.
Like, welcome to the CJ Murray podcast where we have a special waffle episode. All right, man. See you next time, guys.
See ya.